We're going to wait just a moment as folks jump on and sign on. We're excited to have you here and we're excited to talk about first year course registration. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Seeing more folks coming in. Thank you for being here. We're excited to have you. Awesome. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Freshour. I'll be your host this evening. This panel is a 1 hour long and it will be recorded. It is over understanding first year course registration. We'll be utilizing the Q&A function this evening. So if we could give it a test, it is in the bottom of your screen, I believe, on the toolbar. If you could go in the Q&A and put in what location you're tuning in from, that'd be great, just to make sure it works and we can test it. Awesome. I see a couple coming in. Minnesota, Missouri, South Dakota. Amazing. Idaho. Perfect. Thank you all for doing that. Just want to make sure it was up and rolling and y'all know how to use it. That's great. So next, I'm going to move along to my colleague, Allison Moore. She'll chat a little bit about the Office of Student and Family Support. Allison?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Allison Moore, and I'm Assistant Director in the Office of Student and Family Support. And I wanted to share with you this evening some of the ways in which our office supports students in ways that you can be engaged as well. So first, we have our Success Desk. We're located in the lower level of the Reinhardt Alumni Library. And you can reach the Success Desk by calling 402-280-1212. We like to say, if you don't know what to do, dial 1212. That's a great, easy way to remember that number. You can also reach out to us by emailing family@creighton.edu or success@creighton.edu. Additionally, ways that families can stay up to date on all the most current information is by following the Blue Jay Family newsletter, participating in our live panels like the one you're participating in this evening. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, or X, and Facebook. And then another great way to keep on top of all the most up-to-date information is being part of the Blue Jay Family portal and getting information through there. And I will send it back to Morgan.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Next, I want to give a shout out to our Golden Go Jays Blue Jay family sponsors. We have Cobalt Credit Union, Avier, and then Creighton Dining. We just want to give a shout out to our awesome sponsors this year. And then next, I will introduce you to our panelists. This evening, we have for you Lisa Brockhoff, who is the Assistant Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. We will then have Dr. Reedy, who is the Senior Faculty Director for Pre-Professional Advising and Associate Professor of Biology. And then we will also have Dr. Kevin Graham, who is Professor and Chair of Philosophy. And then in the wings, in the chat, we'll have Whitney Eden, who is the Assistant Dean of the Hyder College of Business. He'll be here helping answer questions. So I'll go ahead and send it over to Lisa as the first panelists.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I want to start with just letting you know when the registration dates are for this upcoming spring semester. Seniors will register on November 6th and 7th, juniors on the 10th and 11th, sophomores on November 12th, 13th, and 14th, and then our freshmen will register on November 17th, 18th, and 19th. I should also add that any student can register for a winter term class starting on November 6th. A couple things to just know about registration. As Morgan said, I'm the Assistant Dean in the College of Arts and Sciences. Whitney Iden is here from College of Business, and then Kim Zuzanak is from the College of Nursing. But anytime students have questions about registration or their classes, they should talk to their academic advisor or their dean's office. One of the things that I want to point out is that freshmen and sophomore students will register with their cohort or their class. And so so all the freshmen will register together, all the sophomores, and their pins are assigned randomly. Juniors and seniors are assigned a registration pin based on the number of credit hours they've completed. So the students with the highest number of credit hours will register first. They're the closest to graduation. That also ensures that they get the classes that they need to graduate. And that's how those pins are assigned to juniors and seniors. Students have a lot of mixed feelings about registration, but one thing I want parents and students to know is that the dean's office is monitoring registration and enrollment. So please know that we don't just open the classes and let students register and wonder how it goes. We watch that enrollment during registration and check to see how those classes are filling and what the situation is. So we are well aware of that process. Students must be flexible when planning their schedule. So every student wants to have the perfect schedule, but we just can't guarantee that they're going to get every single class that they want at the time that they want. We can guarantee they'll get the classes that they need, but they need to be flexible and be willing to register for the classes that are open. And I can talk more about that in a little bit. Students should register for 15 to 18 credits. Freshmen have the opportunity to register for 18.5. However, they should, if they're registering for 18.5, that 0.5 is their RSP class. They should be doing extremely well in all of their classes before they register for 18.5 credits. And students will want to fill their schedule. So if a class closes that they want, say a certain section of English, they should register for another section or for another Magis Core class. As I said, students must register for the classes that are open. So if a class closes, they just need to adjust their schedule and select another section. If they have questions about that, they should talk to their advisor. They want to fill their schedule now, but they have the opportunity to adjust their schedule through that first week of school. So have them register for all their classes now, even if it's not exactly the way they want it or if it's not perfect. And then they can wait for the possibility of seats opening in the weeks ahead. The last day to add a class is January 20th. And the last day to drop a class is January 22nd. So they have quite a bit of time between registration and that drop add period to adjust their schedules. Here's some myths that we often hear. So students will often say, oh, registration is so stressful. But that really results from, again, they plan the perfect schedule exactly the way they want it, with the class times, with the professors, all those things. And then registration starts and some of those classes will close or they have to adjust their schedule. And that, I think, is what's frustrating for them. So please let them know that we are here to help as the dean's office and also their advisors. And if they have any questions, they certainly should reach out to us. Many of the classes will or many students will say, I didn't get the classes that I need, which won't be true. They will get the classes that they need. It may just not be at the time that they want, with the professor they want, or with the friends that they want to have in that class. So again, that's when they have to be flexible. They might also say that all classes are closed. Again, we're watching that from the dean's office. All students will get registered. We will make adjustments as necessary and as needed, but also they need to remember that classes close for lots of different reasons. One, there's only a certain number of desks in a classroom, or a lab can only have so many students in it, or the class is designed for students to work in pairs, so they have to have an even number of students in the class. So there's lots of reasons why we have to keep the class sizes the way they are. And then oftentimes students will get frustrated and say, no one will help me. Our office, the dean's office, is open from 8 to 4:30 every day, and we are always available, whether they're in College of Arts and Sciences, business, or nursing, to help students with the registration process. It's something they only do twice a year. So the other thing that makes it a little bit stressful is they're not as familiar with the process. We work with it all the time, so we can usually quickly help them adjust their schedule, find classes, and help them work through any problems that they might be having or any concerns that they have. So if you hear of any of the students with those concerns, please help them sort through that and then refer them to their academic advisor or the dean's office. Some other important dates this week: November 6th is the last day to withdraw from a class with a grade of W. If a student is not doing well in a class, and that might be a D or an F, they should speak to their faculty in that class to determine what percentage do they have, what are the options of passing that class. If they're just not probably going to pass the class, then they should withdraw by sending their academic advisor an email by the end of business day on Thursday. Finals is December 8th through the 12th in December. And then our first day of classes in January is Tuesday, January 13th. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Next, we'll be moving on to Dr. Mark Reedy, who will be talking a little bit about the science tracks as well as our CARS office, which is the Center for Advising Resources and Support. Dr. Reedy.
Thank you, Morgan. Thanks for being here, everyone. Sorry for all the text on this slide. But first thing I want to do is just kind of review the different paths through general chemistry. So when students were here for summer preview, they took a math readiness exam, and based on that, were placed either into Chem 203, which is the first semester of general chemistry, or Chem 102, which is the first half of the first semester. Basically same chemistry content, but slower pace, so the math can be taught concurrently. For students in that Chem 102 class right now, they would take Chem 202 in the spring to finish the first semester of general chemistry, and then next year move on to general chemistry 2. For students in Chem 203, they have to have a C or better to move on to the second semester of general chemistry. For students in Chem 102, they have to have a C or better to move on to the Chem 202 course. For students that are below those grade cutoffs or near those grade cutoffs right now, they can go ahead and sign up for the spring class. If their final grade in the first semester falls below the cutoff, then they'll be disenrolled and they'll talk to their RSP advisor about next steps in that regard. Next step, please. On the biology side of things, most of our freshmen are in Bio 201 right now, which is kind of big biology, ecology, evolution, physiology. Second semester is little biology, biochemistry, cell biology, genetics. The nature of the material in the second semester means that the first semester of chemistry is a prerequisite. So students that fall below the C- cutoff in Chem 203 or the B- cutoff in Chem 102 will not have met the chemistry prerequisite to take biology 202. And those students should, again, talk to me because I teach the class, and talk to the RSP advisor about next steps to get ready for biology next year. The other thing I just like to mention is that Bio 202 is in a flipped format, meaning that we recorded some studio quality videos to deliver the content. The students watch those videos ahead of class, and then we spend time in class reinforcing those ideas in an active learning environment. We flipped the second semester of 202 because that's what professional schools are doing. So our medical school has gone to a flipped curriculum. Our dental school has gone to a flipped curriculum. That is becoming the norm in professional school education. So we want our undergraduates to start getting experience with that type of modality before they get to professional school. Most of the students that are in Bio 201 right now will move on and take Bio 202 in the spring, unless they miss that chemistry cutoff. But if they make the chemistry cutoff but barely, and they're also kind of just barely at that C level in Bio 201, then I'd like to have a conversation with those students about whether tactically it makes sense to take Bio 202 in the spring or wait till they finish general chemistry completely and then take the Bio 202 so they have the best chance to be successful. Because what we really try to drive into our pre-professional students is it isn't just a matter of finishing the classes and moving forward. You have to perform at a high level in those classes so that you have the grades in those classes to be competitive when you're applying to your next steps. And so we want to make sure students aren't rushing through for the sake of completion at the expense of performing to the best of their ability. And I'm happy to talk with any students. They know how to get a hold of me if they have questions. All right, put on my kind of dad hat for a moment. This is kind of the advice that that we really try to drive into the first semester freshmen, but really hope the second semester freshmen will have internalized and started to put into action. First and foremost, part of the reason you choose a school like Creighton is the opportunity to get to know your faculty members. So take advantage of that. That's your best resource when you're struggling, when you're wondering whether you're on the right path. Getting to know that faculty member is a great resource, not just for those conversations, but because of the network of other people the faculty member knows who they can put the student in contact with. We have fantastic resources in student success, tutoring 6 nights a week, lots of office hours among the faculty, tutoring at different levels, group tutoring, individual tutoring, everything in between. Second semester freshman year is when a lot of students find that they need to start taking advantage of those resources. And it's always better to use them early and get off to a good start rather than try to play catch up later after that first midterm exam has come back. We also want students to go into the second semester recognizing that as courses get harder, the strategies they've used to study up to this point might need to change, might need to adapt accordingly. So one of the things we do in the spring with our freshmen is talk about metacognition, talk about being aware of their own strengths and weaknesses when they're studying, how to adapt to those, how to adapt how they're studying to the specific content and expectations of a class. But the big thing is just go into the semester being flexible and don't get overly frustrated when the thing that worked for you in high school is no longer sufficient at the college level, because that is going to happen. And everyone just needs to work through that and find the next thing that does work for them. That might mean that students need to spend more time outside of class, not just on exam weeks, but on an ongoing basis, staying up with the material. So RSP advisors will be working with students on their scheduling and planning, not just of classes, but making the most of those blocks and breaks of time in between classes to make sure that your coursework gets off to a good start. Because in the end, really, the underlying theme here is it is far easier to keep up than to catch up. And we would rather students address deficiencies or address slow starts immediately and quickly, rather than let things accumulate and then halfway through the semester do a panic sprint to try to figure out how to get back to where they need to be. That's always stressful and often not successful. So come in flexible, come in ready to do things differently, and come in ready to make use of all the resources that are out there. And that's the key to being successful in the spring as the classes get harder. All right, and then putting on my other hat. So I am a faculty member in the Department of Biology, but I am housed in the Center for Advising Resources and Support. And so we're kind of the central hub for advising on campus. We work with the RSP advisors in the freshman year, but we work very closely with pre-professional students, pre-law and pre-health. And so I just want to make sure that parents understand that when we say pre-med or pre-law or pre-PT, those are paths, but they are not majors. You don't major in pre-med, you don't major in pre-law, you major in an academic discipline, and then our office and the advisors that we've trained outside of our office help students who have professional interests navigate their way through those majors. What that means is there is not this 3 different pre-med students in the same semester might be doing slightly different things, because depending on their major, depending on their goals, for example, in terms of study abroad, things like that, they might be taking different paths through that particular pre-professional curriculum, and that's fine. Sometimes parents get concerned because they're talking to other parents and, well, my son and my friend's daughter have the same goal, but they're not in the same courses. And likely that is intentional because they've got different majors or they've got different timelines for them when they're going to apply. And students understand that, but sometimes parents, it's sometimes good for parents to hear it too. And that is a lot of what our office does. So our office works both with students and with the RSP advisors to give them the resources to understand how to craft a pre-professional path that works with whatever major the student is interested in, and they can be adapted based on the timeline of when the student plans to apply to professional school. One thing we are not in my office are academic advisors. So we consider ourselves supplemental advisors. So the student's primary advisor in the freshman year is their RSP advisor. We work closely with the RSP advisors. We help train the RSP advisors on pre-professional expectations and coursework so that they're able to answer those questions when they get them. But we don't take the place of academic advisors. I am not going to build a freshman's 4-year schedule. They are going to do that with their RSP advisor. I will gladly then look it over later to make sure that there aren't any gaps, or if they want to have a conversation about tweaks here and there because of particular circumstances, we can do that. And really the take-home message here is that pre-professional advising at Creighton is a collaboration broadly, kind of spearheaded by our office, but that involves faculty in all 3 schools and colleges, and staff advisors in all 3 schools and colleges. And we're very collaborative. We work very closely together. We all have each other's text numbers and are texting back and forth all the time. So there's lots of people kind of keeping an eye on the students as they work their way through. Just know that each student's path might be slightly different based on what their particular goals are along the way. Sometimes freshmen are a little bit confused about how to use our office since we are not their primary advisor. And we really leave that up to the student. So students can schedule individual meetings with myself or my colleagues in the CARS office through a tool that we call Creighton Connect. Students know what that is. But they're not required to do that on any specific timetable. We are there to be a resource for them when they have questions that they want to have or conversations that they need to have. Our interaction with students increases as they get closer to applications. So, I work on a weekly basis with our juniors and seniors getting ready to apply to a professional school. But with our freshmen or sophomores, it's a little bit more intermittent, driven more by when they have questions. We also have formal programming that kind of takes place separately from this, where we're covering the basics and the timelines and things like that outside of individual advising sessions. Pre-law is a little bit different because historically students find law as their goal at different points. Some come in with that as their goal, but most actually discern that as their goal once they're in college. So we have a pre-law interest group rather than a formal class that we add students to as they tell us that they're interested in pre-law. And then we have a number of terrific faculty advisors who are experts in the pre-law pathway. Dr. Graham on the panel here tonight is one of those, who work with our office to guide those students. And law is both easy and hard from an advising standpoint because there's a lot of different paths that can lead to law school equally well, which is great in terms of student flexibility. But sometimes students want to know, well, what's the best way to get into law school? And the answer is there is not a best way to get into law school. There's a lot of equally good ways, and it really depends on what your interests are, what your long-term goals are, and what your timeline is. And we will work with them to help facilitate that. We now, in my office, have a dedicated pre-law advisor. Her name is Audrey. So freshmen in particular who are pre-law, if they want to reach out to CARS and make an appointment with Audrey, that would be a great way to get to know kind of the point person for pre-law advising in our office.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Rady.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be moving on to Dr. Kevin Graham to talk a little bit about the student relationship with faculty advisor. Dr. Graham.
All right, so the main thing I want to emphasize is the importance of the relationship between a student and their faculty advisor, who at this stage of the game is going to be the RSP faculty advisor. So all the higher education research says that the single most important factor in determining whether a student is going to succeed in their undergraduate study or not is the answer to the following question. Is there one adult on campus who knows the student, who knows their name, who understands their academic situation, and cares about whether the student succeeds? If the answer to that question is yes, then the student is probably going to succeed. And if the answer to the question is no, then I don't know whether the student is going to succeed or not. At Creighton University, we are committed to making sure that there are quite a number of adults who check all those boxes. But we make sure that we start with one, and that one is the RSP faculty advisor. That's the most important, most fundamental relationship that any adult on campus is going to have with a given student. And the anchor of that relationship is advising appointments, which we encourage to have happen twice a semester. Once towards the beginning of the semester, often around dropout week, and then again in a course selection advising time, which is going on right now. So some of the things that will happen in the course selection advising appointment is that the student and the faculty advisor will talk about how things are going in the current semester's courses, and then take a look at sort of the overall academic progress in light of the student's goals in terms of getting into a major program of study and pursuing any pre-professional program the student might be interested in, like Dr. Reedy's been talking about. And then after those two conversations have taken place, it'll be possible for the student and the faculty advisor to talk about good course selections for the spring 2026 semester, and if relevant, the winter term for 2025. So some things that everybody ought to be thinking about for spring 2026 schedules. Some of these things may be more important for some people than others, but everybody should at least be considering all of these things. So our general education program at Creighton, the Magis Core curriculum, has a foundations tier of courses that we generally expect to be taken in the first year study. There's a couple of exceptions here. So generally speaking, everybody's taking all 6 of these foundations courses, excepting mathematical reasoning, which is normally taken at least by arts and sciences students in the second year of study once major program of study has been determined. The nurses also often delay philosophical ideas until the second year of study. But generally speaking, most of these foundations courses should be done by the end of the first year of study. The highlighted courses, the highlighted components, critical issues in human inquiry, philosophical ideas, and Christian tradition are highlighted because it's especially important to get those components completed in the first year of study, because they are prerequisites for Magis Core curriculum components at the explorations level. So you can't take literature or global perspectives in history until you've taken critical issues. You can't take ethics until you've taken philosophical ideas, and you can't take biblical tradition until you've taken the Christian tradition. The second kind of consideration is appropriate pre-health professional prerequisite courses in the case of the pre-health disciplines. So Dr. Reedy has discussed that so exhaustively that I don't really think I have anything useful to add there. If there is room, it's also not a bad idea to take an exploration course, and an intended or possible major program of study. This isn't always going to be possible, especially for pre-health students. But if it is possible for a pre-health student, that's great. If the student is not pursuing a pre-health professional program and has lots and lots of prerequisite courses, it's a great idea to try something out in the second semester of study so you can see whether you like it and maybe get a foot up on choosing your major program of study.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Graham. Now it's time for questions from the audience. Please utilize the Q&A function with any questions you may have, and we'll be able to answer them live here. I have one question to start off with. Lisa, I believe it'll be for you. The question says, my student is interested in transferring from the College of Arts and Sciences to the Heider College of Business. Do they have to wait a year, or can they do that at semester?
They should wait until their sophomore year. However, partly because they're in their RSP class and they're taking it for half credit. So we want them to complete RSP, which is year long in the College of Arts and Sciences. However, they can start taking business classes this coming semester. And so they just need to talk with their academic advisor about that. Common classes would be Econ 203 and possibly Accounting 201. But also Whitney's on the Zoom call today, so we can also ask her for her input.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Iden. I'm the Assistant Dean for the Heider College of Business, and we would be super excited to welcome any of your students into Heider. If they, like Lisa said, they can start taking business classes immediately. Econ 203, Introductory Microeconomics, is the best option for them, but they can also talk to their faculty advisor in arts and sciences or their dean's office over there to find classes that are going to fulfill requirements in both colleges, like Psych 201, Computer Science 121, maybe. We also want to talk to them about their math requirements, because their math requirements between arts and sciences and Heider are a little bit different. But the good news is that arts and sciences and Heider have a wonderful relationship, and we kind of send students back and forth. And so we all kind of know who the contacts are, and we are happy to help out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Morgan, I was going to add too, is that, when students are thinking about transferring back and forth, they really should first take classes in the area that they want to go into to make sure that they're actually going to like those classes before they transfer. So that's also part of the reason why we want them to try a couple classes next semester, maybe talk with the folks in the Heider College of Business, try those classes out, and then transfer that first semester of their sophomore year if they find that they actually do like those classes.
Thank you. The next question, I believe also for Lisa, will be, how does a grade of a W affect students' transcripts and scholarship opportunities? Are students allowed to retake the class?
Yes. So the good thing about a grade of W, a withdraw, is that it doesn't necessarily impact their GPA. So if a student gets a lower grade in a class, that's going to bring their GPA down. One thing that students need to keep in mind is that they don't want to make a habit of withdrawing from classes. So students must complete 75% of the classes they've attempted cumulatively to stay in good academic standing and also receive financial aid. So sometimes I hear students say, oh, I have a C in a class, I want an A, I'm going to withdraw. That's probably not a good reason to withdraw. Or sometimes they just get in a class and really find they just don't enjoy it, or they don't necessarily click with the professor. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily a good reason either. they're not going to necessarily love every single class. Every class is going to be different. So those are some things that they should take into consideration. Also, if they're thinking about withdrawing, they should be speaking with their academic advisor, and they can always consult with the financial aid office as well. But their main contact should be their academic advisor and also their instructor in the class as well. And if Dr. Reedy or Dr. Graham have any additional input on that, please feel free to add to that as instructors.
From a pre-professional standpoint, maybe a few things I'll add. The one is that you know a W or maybe two W's on the transcript when a student applies to professional school will not knock them from consideration, but a pattern of W's will. So keep that in mind. You know, students should not pull the trigger too quickly on the W. They need to be sure that you know, sometimes I hear students, oh, I'm going to lose my 4.0 because I've got to be in this class. I think I'm going to withdraw. And that's a terrible idea, right? A B or even a C is better than a W in any given single class. The other thing with the W on it, if you're on a pre-professional track, is the professional schools will generally expect that you go back and retake that class later and demonstrate that you can do it. So a W does not necessarily mean that you're never going to take that class again, particularly if it's a class that is considered, you know, a common class, a class commonly taken on the track that that student is on. There is one scholarship, there is one program at Creighton called Pre-Professional Scholars Program, where W's from required courses within that program can jeopardize the student status to retain that CPPSP designation. Students who are, but a W is still better than a D or an F, right? So students in that circumstance should reach out to the CARS office. Bethany Gallimore in my office in particular works very closely with the CPPSP program, and she's happy to help talk students through the decision tree there.
One thing that I would add more generally, not just for pre-professional students, but for everybody, is that I would suggest that two conversations should happen before a student goes ahead and tries to withdraw from a class. And the first one is actually with the instructor of the class itself. And you know, you need to try to figure out, like, what is your overall situation in the class? How likely is it that you're going to be able to pull the grade up to something to where you can pass the class? That is not necessarily a fun conversation to have. You know, if you're not doing well in a class, it might be that the instructor of that class is pretty much the last person you want to talk to. But this is part of becoming an adult, is having conversations you don't really want to have. After you've had that conversation, then you need to go to the faculty advisor and discuss what your options are in light of what the instructor has told you. But often getting some information from the instructor about how likely it is that the student could pull the grade up is an important first step.
Thank you all. Next question, I believe, will be for Dr. Graham as well. The question is, my student took college credit courses in high school. How do we find out what they count for? Is this something their advisor would know, or does he have to go somewhere else to get this information?
So the advisor is going to know that what you need to do is submit all transcripts from the from whatever higher learning institution granted the credit to Creighton University. Okay, so and so if those transcripts will be sent to the Office of Admissions. Office of Admissions will make sure they get to the relevant college, so College of Arts and Sciences, Heider College of Business, College of Nursing, and then the relevant assistant dean in each of those colleges will will review the transcript and decide which classes count for what. We can't do anything until we have a transcript from the college or university. The high school transcript is not enough. And so if the very first thing you need to do is request those transcripts, and that should really happen as soon as possible.
Thank you. The next question, I believe, will be for Lisa. The question is, what is the process of meeting foreign language course requirement without taking the class? The question says, can she take some exam and score a certain percentage, and she'll be considered meeting the requirement of foreign language course? The student had completed 4 years of Spanish in high school.
Yes, so the student should complete the language placement exam first to see how she places. If she does extremely well on that, places extremely high, then she could go ahead and take the competency test to determine if she is fluent. What we found is that language classes vary in high school. And so to really get a good understanding of their language level, the students need to take the language placement exam. And then, as I said, if the student is doing very well on that, then the competency test. If they pass the competency test, then they would receive credit for their language credit. There was another question about taking 18.5 credits this semester. So freshmen can take 18.5 credits in the spring. It's the only semester that they can take over 18 credits without special permission and without paying extra. But please remember that students should be doing very well in all of their classes this semester before they attempt 18.5 next semester. So that's going to be a lot of credits. So if they are just doing okay in their classes or struggling a little bit, I would not encourage them to do 18.5. If they've withdrawn from a class and they think that maybe making up a class by taking 18.5 is a good idea, it's not. They should be in the range of probably 15 to 16 and a half credits would be a good range.
Lisa, just to follow up to the foreign language question, correct me if I'm wrong, but if a student, if based on the placement exam, a student is placed in a 300 level class, they can opt to take one class below that, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
they can.
if the student's placed in the 300 based on the placement test, but they don't feel ready for that, they can drop into the class prior to that and meet the requirement that way. Yeah,
and that's true. And students should not use any resources when they take the language placement exam or competency test. Because if they use resources and they place higher than their actual level, they will struggle in the Spanish class that they placed into. And so they need to just take the placement exam based on where they're at right now to get the best results.
And I saw Whitney was, Morgan, if I can jump in, I saw Whitney was typing an answer about the, if a student retakes a class, how does that, what happens with the new grade? Does it replace the old grade or not? There is, just so everybody knows, when you apply to professional schools, students have submitted their full transcript. Professional schools see if you've taken a class twice, and they generally average the two grades. So if you took a class the first time and got a D and took a class the second time and got a B, they would average that out when they were calculating your GPA for their purposes, and that would average out to a C. So the Creighton GPA, the second time you take it, replaces the first in terms of calculating Creighton GPA, but they're both on the transcript, and because they're both on the transcript, and that's a legal requirement. Professional schools see both grades, and generally speaking, they average the grades of repeated classes.
And students can only retake classes if they get a C-, D, and F, or if they withdraw from a class. So if they get a B and they're not happy with a B, they cannot retake that class.
And nor would they want to, because if they're pre-professional, you average, if they take the B and they get an A minus the next time they take it and they average it averages out to a B plus. That doesn't really move the needle very much in terms of changing their application strength.
Perfect. Thank you all. I believe that is all our questions for this evening. I just want to thank you all as our panelists and thank all our attendees for coming this evening. Next week, next Tuesday, we have another Blue Jay Family Live panel, but it will be about preparing for finals. The invite was sent out last week, so we look forward to seeing you all there. But besides that, thank you for joining us. If you have any additional questions, please email family@creighton.edu. And we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Go Jays!